Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips with staff writer Collyn Taylor, who was at today's Muschamp press conference getting ready for the Florida game at Williams-Brice coming up this Saturday at noon. It'll be televised by CBS. Collyn, very interesting development with Florida here in the last few weeks. You know, they've lost 4 games in a row. That's the longest losing streak in the Southeastern Conference right now. The Gators have changed head coaches, with Jim McElwain being fired after the 42-7 loss to Georgia in the cocktail party a couple of weeks ago. And Florida's off to its worst start since 1979. So this is the Florida football team that the Gamecocks welcome into Williams-Brice on Saturday. And, you know, the Gamecocks lost by 2 TDs to Georgia last weekend. But all in all, I don't think I get the feeling that while Muschamp is disappointed and the fan base obviously wanted to win the game, that was a loss that a lot of people can live with, Collyn.
Yeah, and, South Carolina kind of hung with them a little bit. They were shot for shot. They were, down just 11 points in the fourth quarter, which there's no such thing as a moral victory, but that seemed like, progress than what would have happened probably a year ago. And, at the end of the day, Muschamp and Kirby Smart said it both, is that Georgia just has right now better athletes. They have guys that, have been in that situation before and, are better athletes. And I think South Carolina played about as well as it could, missed a few opportunities here and there. But, all in all, I think they're not happy with the loss, but pretty proud of how they came out, mostly injury-free, too. Yeah,
Georgia, number 1 team in the college football playoff rankings, number 2 in the AP poll, and, was a 24-point favorite. So that loss to Georgia on Saturday, I don't, it's a strange situation. You never want to lose a football game, but it really feels like, that sits okay with the fan base right now. So we're turning our attention to Florida now, Collyn. And Muschamp talked about injuries at the top. He said that Taylor Stallworth is the only player that would be considered questionable right now. Gamecock defensive tackle missed practice today, but Muschamp said that he should be back tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday, and they do expect that he'll be able to play, but he would be considered questionable right now on this Tuesday.
Right. He's questionable with a head injury. Left the game after he tackled Jake Fromm, and Fromm kind of fell on top of him. So you really don't know if, obviously, head injuries, and we're really not sure if it's a concussion right now, but those head injuries can kind of linger. But right now they're hoping to get him back in practice, and hopefully he can play, do the big part of that defensive line for South Carolina. And DJ Smith was kind of held out of practice today with a hip pointer after that cut block against Georgia, but he said that if it were up to him, he'd be playing on Saturday, and that he thinks he's going to be able to go and suit up fully for Saturday. Said right now he's kind of working back to 100%.
Okay, in the event that Stallworth is not able to play, he said that it'll be a combination of Kier Thomas, Javon Kinlaw, and Kobe Smith playing in place of Taylor Stallworth. And Muschamp went on to talk more about Javon Kinlaw, and he said some good things about Kinlaw. He was asked about his development, his growth this year in his first year with the Gamecock football program, and Muschamp described Kinlaw as a space eater, something the Gamecocks will need against Florida this weekend. And Muschamp said that he bumped into Kinlaw in the elevator at the football facility this week, and Kinlaw is in good shape, Muschamp said. He's lost some weight, and Kinlaw said to Muschamp, "I can play more than 45 snaps, Coach."
And Kinlaw even told the media that today, that we asked him kind of where he felt if they needed to up the snaps in the rotation. He said, last week I only played 45, and this week I feel like I could play a lot more than that. So he even said that he feels like he's getting quicker, too, going sideline to sideline, trying to chase down some of what he called the little guys, catching those short passes. So, he's gone from 340 to 300. His speed's increasing. He's playing a lot better. He had his best game of the year from his point of view this week against Georgia. So I think the sky's the limit. He's kind of worked his way into the starting rotation. He's been playing a lot of snaps for South Carolina. They're certainly going to need him to continue to improve and continue to play at that high level if Stallworth can go.
Yeah, Kinlaw's been an excellent addition to the Gamecock defense, the Goose Creek High School product from the Low Country in South Carolina. making some progress with the Gamecocks, and he's dropped that weight. We talked about that a few weeks ago, the fact that he needed to lose some weight when he first arrived at South Carolina, and he has reached that point now. So he's making progress and is contributing nicely to the Gamecock defense. So Collyn, Muschamp talked about Deebo Samuel announcing that he will be coming back to South Carolina next year, and Muschamp said that he found out Sunday night. And Muschamp, obviously very excited, said that, that was Deebo's announcement to make, and he said this is great news. It's an exciting time at the University of South Carolina when you think about Deebo Samuel coming back next year and Bryson Allen Williams.
Right, and you look at a few guys that are opting to come back, is with Bryson and Deebo, and it was kind of funny the timeline where Muschamp Sunday night put on a teleconference. He's only going to talk about Deebo Samuel, return or non-return, his future at the appropriate time. Then about 10 minutes later, Deebo Samuel tweets out that he's going to come back. So it was just a very kind of funny timeline, and Muschamp joked about it today that, that's not his decision or not his moment, not his place to announce those kinds of things. And, when you start to look at it, you have Casey Crosby coming back too. You have Rico Dowdle coming off his injury. You're going to have Bryson Allen Williams coming back, and you're going to have a host of young talent that's getting a lot of action this year for those guys who are injured. And that's, that could spell nothing but good things, getting guys more reps as younger players, and then having guys come back who have shown that they can produce at a high level, in the SEC, like Bryson Allen Williams and Deebo Samuel.
Emerson Phillips with Collyn Taylor here on Gamecock Central Radio. We want you to download the Gamecock Central Radio app. It's this free phone app that allows you to listen to our podcast on your cell phone or mobile device. You can download it on the App Store and on Google Play. You can subscribe to our podcast as well. Search for Gamecock Central Radio on iTunes, SoundCloud, and other popular services, or visit radio.GamecockCentral.com. And we encourage you to take advantage of the Gamecock Central hotline. We've set up this new phone number that allows you to call in and be a part of our podcast. You can call in, leave us a voice message with questions, comments, or feedback, and Wes Mitchell and Chris Clark will answer your questions on a future game day edition of Gamecock Central Radio. So we're taking your Florida calls and questions right now at 803-497-9058. The GC hotline open for you at 497-9058. You call in, leave us a voicemail, and we'll play that recording of your voice on this Saturday's game day edition of Gamecock Central Radio. So, Collyn, you talked about Deebo coming back and Bryson Allen Williams, and he touched on Casey Crosby a little bit as well, whom you mentioned. He didn't talk about Rico Dowdle coming back today, but he said previously that Dowdle could be back for the bowl game, and he said the same about Casey Crosby today. Muschamp said, I'm not a doctor, but it looks like the bowl is a possibility for Casey Crosby.
Right, and ideally you'd like to have those guys back. He said before Rico Dowdle's a guy that could potentially come back this year for a bowl game or something like that. But then he always is quick to remind everybody he's not a doctor. So, if those guys can come back, it'd be obviously a huge boost. Those guys have fresher legs than someone who's been playing in 4, 5, 6 games this season. It might be a little bit of rust, but all in all, I think anytime you can get guys back who have played at a high level like Dowdle and like Crosby have, then that's good for your football team. Those are always solid things for anybody. Anytime you can get a veteran guy back on a team, you're going to take that.
So, Collyn, to say that Florida is reeling right now would be a vast understatement. Muschamp talked about telling the team this week, don't play the team that you're going to see on film against Georgia and Missouri. He said that he feels like Florida will be much more motivated coming into the South Carolina game on Saturday, coming into Williams-Brice, than they've been the last couple of weeks, because the program has just been a ship without a sail. They've been in a state of disarray for the last couple of weeks. So maybe a little bit of that has leveled off for Florida, and their interim coaching staff is going to try to rally the troops a little bit and get this team focused on the last couple of weeks of the season. And Muschamp expects Florida to provide a real test. He said that Florida pushed the Gamecocks around on the line of scrimmage last year, and that's something the Gamecocks have got to be ready for Saturday.
And he said that, you mentioned the Georgia and the Missouri games where they kind of got throttled, but Muschamp said that he's really not focusing on that film. He's telling the guys to go back and watch the earlier games against Tennessee and against A&M to really get the feel for this football team, and that's kind of what I think the coaching staff's going to harp on, is focusing on those games. But you're right, Florida's been kind of they're grasping at straws right now. It seems the coaching staff to just kind of get any kind of motivation, any kind of want and will to go out and play these games, because it's hard when there's an interim coaching staff. There's not a whole lot of certainty around that program right now. And I think that's going to benefit Florida a little bit, somewhat, just because, they're kind of hoping South Carolina takes it easy on them. I think that's Florida's hope, but a lot depends on how South Carolina is going to take it. Talking to some of the players today, it really doesn't seem like they're focused too much on Florida's outward situation. They're just focusing on, they said, at the end of the day, if Florida comes in here and beats us, they beat us. It's really not going to affect anything. We really have to come out and play well, because we know that anything could get any team. It's really not about what goes on in the week. It's about what goes on Saturdays. So I think the team's going to have the right mindset, and it should be a pretty fun game, I think, just because Florida is kind of grasping at straws right now to see, if they can pull out something to salvage this season.
South Carolina 6-3 overall, 4-3 in the SEC. It's the last SEC game of the season for the Gamecocks. And Florida comes in 3-5 overall, 3-4 in the league. And it's obviously Florida's last SEC game of the year as well. South Carolina opened as a 9-point favorite. The line has since dropped to about 7.5 right now. So we're ready for a noon start, actually a 12:09 official kick time. Saturday, the game will be on CBS. And Collyn, we wrap up SEC play on Saturday. I think the Gamecock Nation will be out in full force to watch the final conference home game of the year, and we're getting down to the stretch run of the 2017 regular season, Collyn.
Yeah, it always seems like football season goes by in a blink of an eye. We're already staring at the last three home games, and last chance to see this team and kind of build on this year, and should be a fun one. Should be a lot of we got a couple good games on the slate. Especially with number 4 Clemson kind of looming in the background there. So
yes,
it should be a fun way to wrap up the 2017 year.
That's right. 3 home games remaining in the regular season for the Gamecocks, so no more road trips, and that Clemson game looms large. Wofford obviously next week, but Florida this weekend. And interesting that Muschamp was obviously the head coach at Florida, and he said that the whole experience at Florida, even though things didn't end the way he would have liked, it was very positive for him, and he said nothing but good things about Florida today. And a number of his players that he recruited are still on the football team down there in Florida. So he still has good feelings about Florida, and it's an interesting matchup from that standpoint. So, Collyn, good stuff today. Thanks for the report.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's Collyn Taylor, our staff writer from Gamecock Central, and I am Emerson Phillips, and this is Gamecock Central Radio. Thanks for being with us.